Welcome to Shadow of Truth, and today is Thursday, March 2nd, 2017, and your hosts are Rory Hall from thedailycoin.org and Dave Kranzler from investmentresearchdynamics.com. What's going on, Dave?
Well, I've got some very important news-breaking information to share with everyone. My sources at the DNC are telling me that the Russians were behind that mistake at the Oscars the other night. The Russians hacked the Oscars.
Who else would do it? Well,
but I think Trump should investigate them.
I think you're right. Well, let's jump in and make something happen.
And so the snake oil salesman on Wall Street said, oh, well, these things are valued based on clicks and eyeballs. It's based on the number of clicks and eyeballs. So I'm sure Snap has some way to track when a filter is used, how many people receive it. That doesn't even mean they actually look at it because, you know, I don't use Snap, but it's be like, oh God, why are people sending me these pictures of them, you know, at a restaurant? Who cares? You know? So it's like, I'm sure it's like Facebook, you know, Facebook has these fraudulent advertising view metrics. Forget what they call it, clicks or like the likes. The likes are fraudulent, you know. So exactly. Some of their metrics on how they track how many people actually look at ads are fake. And they've even admitted it. They've come out and had to revise down their metrics. And it's going to be the same thing with Snap. You know, and this thing, so they're marketing it as a camera.
I mean, as far as Facebook and these other nonsensical IPOs that have come out, all of these so-called companies that they've been marketing as a viable stock, I mean, it's ridiculous. I mean, I can tell you right now, I mean, I do an email. I have an email subscription for my website. I have a fairly significant number of people, and it provides you metrics on the number of deliveries that are made, the number of people that open it, the number of people that click on articles that are within the email, all of these various metrics, and I trust them. I mean, they have the technology to do that. It's very simple. And my guess is that Snapchat is going to use something similar to that in order to be able to track it. Does that mean it's a camera? No, it's not a camera. It's a web-based service that is, it makes no sense. I mean, like you said, if somebody sends me an image of something, am I going to look at it? I may look at the first one, but after that, I'm going to know that they're just sending me an ad. So I'm not going to open that up. I mean, they're not sending me anything that I'm concerned with.
Bingo. And that's the thing. I mean, this thing it's basically a fad among millennials.
Right.
So, you know, like Sid uses it, but I don't know very many people in our demographic, I guess we're baby boomers, who really use it. And the millennials will get bored with this thing really quickly. So, I mean, these are the numbers on the thing, because I looked at the brief look at the financials yesterday, and they're marketing it on growth. Well, yeah, guess what? The product was I think it basically rolled out within the last 2 years. So, you know, when they're marketing this, they're like, well, look, our revenue went from $58 million in 2015 to $404 million in 2016. Well, I hope so. It's a brand new product, and everyone under 40 is, you know, giving it a try. So of course you're gonna have a big jump in revenues. But when you look at you know, the valuations that this thing was taken public at, it was valued at $24 billion. All right, that's 54 times revenues, and the thing loses more money than it generates in revenues.
Sounds like Amazon.
It had 404 million in sales in 2016. It lost over 500 million, and it burned about $1.5 billion in cash. Now, some of that's going to be, cash. It'll be investments that might not be recurring. I don't know. We don't know. This thing doesn't have a long enough operating history. But the cash that it used in just operating the thing, okay, so its revenues went from 58 million to 404 million. Now the cash used in its operations burned 300 million in cash last year. It more than doubled in 2016. Over 600 million in cash, and that's just the operation. So it's telling you it's costing them more money than they're getting for each dollar of revenue they're generating. Forget about income.
That's the Amazon model, isn't it?
Yeah, but here's the thing, and I'll get to that. But so now, the other thing that it's emblematic of how idiotic this stock market is. Since before the market opened, everyone's waiting for the first trade in Snap. And, like Fox Business is showing the kiosk on the floor of the New York Stock Exchange. There's dozens of people standing around. And think about all the financial media people, with their eyeballs looking at the TV, waiting to see where the first trade price is. Well, the indication is somewhere between 22 and 24 a share. It was priced at 17 a share. So if let's just say at the midpoint, if that's the first trade, all of a sudden the valuation of this thing jumps. It's a camera. It jumps from 24 billion to 32 billion. This thing is being marketed as a camera company with a new way to use your cell phone as a camera. Well, guess what? Remember GoPro?
Exactly.
Okay, GoPro IPO'd at 24. The first trade was at 30. It ran up to nearly $100 a share. You know where it is now?
Probably about
$9.
$8. How many?
$9 a share.
No, I said 8. So
there you go. Yeah, and I have a feeling that's going to be a similar path as this one. When you look at, okay, well, let's say it's really social media. Okay, so Facebook trades, and I just looked it up. They trade at something like 4 or 5 times sales. I forget what the number was. Don't hold me to that. Amazon trades at a little over 2 times sales. This thing at the capitalization rate where it was priced is 54 times sales. These valuations are just absurd, and it just is. It's emblematic of how dangerously ridiculous this stock market is. And I've seen some data reports come out over the last couple days that suggest that this last push higher has been largely fueled by retail mom and pop investors, and that's basically where a move like this is about ready to burn out and go back the other way. And I don't know if that'll happen this time because the amount of central bank and Department of Treasury intervention in the stock market is unprecedented. They're in this thing almost every day, if not every day, if not several times a day, to keep it from heading south. And part of the reason for that is they're going to have a problem that is historically unmanageable when this thing starts selling off. You already have pensions that are blowing up.
Yes.
So imagine what happens if the stock market retreats 20%. You're going to have the biggest pensions in the country blowing up, and then you have a real problem on your hands.
Well, speaking of pensions, we already know that CalPERS is in very serious trouble. We know that the, excuse me, that one that you're referencing was that smaller Teamsters pension fund that blew up yesterday, but the main Teamsters pension fund, it's already in serious trouble. They've
already
reported last year
60% benefit reductions on their people. Now, what's interesting about this is how can the stock market be hitting a record high every day,
right,
and yet every single pension in the country, a friend of mine who works at a pension fund did a study, and every single pension fund in the country is underfunded. How can you have a stock market hitting all-time highs and all these pension funds are underfunded? It speaks to a lot of things not the least of which is the amount of fraud going on in the system, because these guys managing these pension funds and pension fund money are just, they're pulling money out of them in indirect ways and putting that money in their pocket. It's like that Dallas police pension fund
Exactly.
and that one essentially is blown up too, and that
Yep.
was a giant real estate fraud that blew that one up. So
Well, and as far as Snapchat, I mean, the Dow hit an all-time new record high yesterday, and my guess is that Snapchat is going to push it to a new all-time record high again today. I
well,
mean,
and on the other hand, this IPO could be the sign that the top is in. And I forget, that's what happened in the internet bubble era. I forget which stock it was that priced, and it was basically the valuation was so absurd, and it kind of marked the peak of the internet bubble, and then obviously the internet bubble collapsed. But I know you wanted to try and tie this back into Trump's speech a couple nights ago, and I didn't watch it. I saw this, I read about the snippets from it. The guy didn't say anything that was any different from what he basically, has already said his administrative policies are going to be. And so for the market to run up 300 points on that speech, again, that just speaks to how insanely idiotic this stock market is.
yeah, I mean, as far as his speech, he laid out everything that he's already laid out 100 times before. He reiterated the fact that he loves the police state, and the police state is getting ramped up in ways that we hadn't even thought of yet. But what I wanted to make note of was the fact that the dying Democratic Party they shot themselves in the foot is what they did, because every time that they would pan the room and show, all of Congress with the podium on one side of the screen and all of Congress on the other side, the Democrats sitting like a stone, not supportive. They were showing people, I mean, and some of the things that he said that I don't trust the guy, never have, as far as his connections with the Clintons and the various other swamp critters that he says he's going to get rid of. But the way that he framed everything and delivered it to the American people and to Congress, all of Congress, including the Democrats, should have been on board, should have been supportive of what he was saying, because it was right in their wheelhouse. But yet they sat there, and it was so telling on their part as far as how disconnected they actually have become with the American people. I mean, it's incredible. It's like these idiot entertainers that come out from their ultra privileged lifestyles and try to tell us how to live. It's the exact same thing. I mean, don't tell me how to live or how to think or what to do or who to hang out with when you're not doing it. A, you're not doing it. B, you have no concept of what I'm doing or how I'm living. You have no clue. And that's what was shown in that speech. That's what really grabbed me, and that's what I wanted to see, get your thoughts on that. I mean, do you think that the Democrats have just completely isolated themselves at this point, or do you think there's any redeeming qualities within that organization at all, or within the individuals like Nancy Pelosi, who's completely just crazy, it seems like at times?
You mean Queen Nancy?
Yeah.
I remember in '08, the Democrats swept everything, and the story back then was, well, this is the demise of the Republican Party. The Republican Party, because remember, you had the Tea Party element,
Yep.
and everyone thought the teabaggers were disrupting the unity in the Republican Party, and that was gonna bring down the Republican Party, and there'd be a complete political restructuring in this country. Well, it never happened. I mean, it just took 8 years for people to get sick and tired of Obama telling them everything's great, and yet the labor force participation rate kept sinking every year. Wait a minute, how come Obama keeps telling me we're making, I'm supposed to be making so much more money, and yet I'm not, and the money that I am making doesn't go as far as it did the year before. So and I think it just, the Democratic Party's reign of terror fizzled eventually, just like Bush's reign of terror fizzled eventually. This one, I think, is going to fizzle. I don't think Trump's not going to last two terms, but there's a chance it fizzles before he even gets 4 years in. I mean, the deep state's already doing what they can to undermine his presidency.
Yes.
The Pentagon's making decisions now, military decisions, independent of Trump. It's like they don't even care that he's supposed to sign off on it. They're just doing it. And, to me, that's telling. It's telling about, really what you're talking about, and what I'm seeing is it's not just the Democratic Party. It's just a general political crisis in this country. And it's been getting worse. I'd say it's been getting worse since probably since the end of Clinton's second term is when it really started bubbling. And that was when the internet bubble popped, and that's when Greenspan put his foot on the money and credit accelerator and caused the mortgage and housing bubble. And that thing, the stock market collapsed. Everything collapsed in '08, and the Fed saved it, along with the government taking $1 trillion in taxpayer dollars to keep the banks alive. And the banks took most of that money and paid themselves bonuses. So, and I think people are just getting tired of seeing the corruption, and it's both parties. It's not just the Democrats. It's both parties. Right. And I just think that what we're seeing are the signs of, political, economic, financial, and social chaos starting to really bubble up. And that's why you're seeing the counterforce to that is this as you alluded to, surveillance on our private lives, and taking away our rights, and basically clamping down on our freedoms, because an angry population is the biggest threat to a government. I mean, let's not make any mistakes here. I mean, Trump is the government now, and the government is the enemy of the people. So, most people, I think the government who was thinking the government was their friends, whether it was Democrats or Republicans running it, they're starting to realize the government is the problem, and the government's going to fight back, and that's where the danger is. And we're seeing that with Trump. Yes. The guy's just signing executive orders willy-nilly like he's an emperor. I don't recall that he was an anointed emperor. I think he was elected.
Some people would argue that point.
I might be confusing it. I don't know. Maybe that's not how it happens in this country anymore. You elect someone, and then he goes into office and just does what he wants. I mean, Obama did it. Bush did it. Clinton kind of started the trend.
Yep. Yeah.
So, and that's what I think's going on. I just think it's just another signal. What you saw the other night is just a signal that the whole system's starting to melt down.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, and if you look at what's happening in Europe and combine that with what's happening here, I think that the disillusionment, as you pointed out, by the general populace of this country, I think that that's beginning to rise at this point, and it's has the potential to create a lot of problems for the government. And I think that that's part of what Jade Helm was about, Jade Helm 15, Operation Wix in 2016, and now we see Trump falling right into line with implementing voice. He called it voice. I can't remember exactly what it is, but it's an acronym for eliminating the illegal immigrants and supporting the victims of immigrant crimes. And that's where I see the police state really being ramped up. It's what he said. I believe that I read that he was going to increase DHS by 10,000 officers, which that's a big number. You know, you divide 10,000 by 50 states, you got a lot of folks going on all of a sudden. A lot of federalized police in your neighborhood going door to door trying to find illegal immigrants. And that's what I wrote about right after he was elected.
It kind of echoes Nazi Germany, right?
Yes, very much so. I mean, how else are you going to find these illegal immigrants? You're going to have to go door to door. And what have we already seen over the past several years that you and I have discussed on occasion, as far as the police running amok, killing people, killing innocent people, killing people on the street when they shouldn't, when there's no just cause for it, going to the wrong address and killing someone, going to the wrong address and harassing people. I mean, are we going to see that more and more? We're going to see more of that? Are we going to see more people gunned down in the streets by the police? Are we going to see, shootouts in neighborhoods because of a wrong address and somebody being in the wrong space? Mentally, it's terrifying to me. I mean, that is really frightening, that aspect of it, because that's what could potentially happen.
Yeah, I don't think we're there yet, but that's where it's headed for sure.
I don't think we're there yet, but I mean, he's definitely
getting close,
putting the things in place.
Sure, and Obama paved the way before him when he campaigned in 2008 saying he was going to undo all of Bush's executive orders on surveillance using cell phones and computers, and he gets into office and he converts everything into legislation and made them even more burdensome on the individual. He basically gave the government more power to conduct surveillance using cell phones, despite when he campaigned, he said he was going to undo all that. And it's just getting worse. And it doesn't, like I said, it doesn't matter if it's Democrat or Republican. They all become captives of the deep state, and that's where we are. And that's, Trump's fighting it, but he's going to lose.
It's unfortunate because ultimately he doesn't lose, we do. And that's the problem. So what else on your mind, Dave?
Oh, that's about it.
Looks like they're trying to beat down gold and silver this morning, but it's holding its own against yesterday's losses, it looks like.
Well, that's the other funny thing. They started hammering gold about an hour before Trump's speech, and during his speech, the stock futures started spiking higher, and gold started moving lower, because you can't have gold going higher while the president's speaking, because it would discredit everything he's saying, right?
Right.
And then yesterday, the headlines were stocks soar on Trump's speech, which he didn't say anything new, and on the alleged interest rate hike that's coming. Well, and gold was down, obviously. Well, that's kind of funny, because since when are higher interest rates good for stocks? They never have been. It's like the opposite. I wrote a blog piece that touched on this. It's like the opposite of the truth is what's happening now. Higher interest rates means stocks go higher, gold goes down. Well, actually, if you look at the historical data, higher interest rates are actually pretty good for gold on average and in general since 1971. So, and they got gold down to 1236, and it bounced back to 1251. And I knew when I woke up this morning I'd see gold down again, and it was back down to 1236, and it's already rebounded $5. So they can't keep gold down because the physical demand coming from the east is too strong, and they're losing their ability to to take paper and set the price. And I think the price is right now there's a standoff between the price the physical market's willing to pay to get more, and the price that that they're trying to knock it, the degree to which they're trying to knock down that price in the paper market. Because again, if you look at the overnight trading pattern, gold started selling off after the London AM fix, which is 5 a.m. New York time. And then it started selling off even more when the COMEX opened, and now it's bounced again. So they've got a problem on their hands with gold. And the problem is that gold is the oldest symbol of truth and freedom in human history. And they're having trouble changing. It's really kind of a law of nature.
Yes.
They're having trouble changing that law.
Well, it's called a law and not a theory or anything else. I mean, it's not a theory of gold. It's a law of gold. It's a law of nature. So, and speaking of which, if people go over to thedailycoin.org, they will find a banner ad there for silver at spot. Silver Doctors or SD Bullion got a 10-ounce bar silver at spot. So click the banner and pick one up.
Is that a U.S. minted bar, or is it a private label bar?
Private label.
Okay.
So I'm hoping for a beat down. Yeah, spot. I'll take spot anytime.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, all right, Dave. You got anything else?
No. Well, I got a lot else, but this show's too long already.
Well, we'll pick it up on Monday and see where we stand.
Sounds good to me.
All right, buddy.